A tea, my father's retirement party, my stepmother said, "You're a disappointment," loudly behind my back, not knowing I had reconnected with my estranged mother. The truth came out a few weeks later. I stood in the corner of the banquet hall, watching my father's retirement party unfold like a carefully orchestrated performance, where I was the only one who hadn't received the script. The champagne in my glass had gone flat an hour ago, much like my enthusiasm for this entire evening. My name is Soleil, and I've spent 28 years trying to live up to impossible expectations. Tonight was supposed to be different. I'd even worn the pearl earrings my father had given me for my 16th birthday, hoping they might serve as some kind of peace offering. There you are. Paige's voice cut through the ambient chatter sharp as a knife. My stepmother glided toward me in her designer dress, perfect makeup, and that practiced smile that never quite reached her eyes. "Darling, you really should mingle. Standing alone in corners isn't exactly helping your image." "I was just taking a break," I said, forcing a smile. "It's been a long evening." "It's barely 9, sweetie." She adjusted my collar without asking, her red nails grazing my neck. "Your father's colleagues keep asking about you. The least you could do is make an appearance." Before I could respond, my half-brother Alex appeared beside us. "Mom, Dad's looking for you." "Something about a speech?" Paige's eyes lit up. "Oh, of course. Fletcher always needs my help with these things." She hurried away, leaving behind a cloud of expensive perfume. Alex squeezed my shoulder. "You okay?" "I'm fine," I lied, just wondering how much longer I need to stay to maintain the facade of the perfect family. "Soleil," he started but was interrupted by the clinking of glass. My father stood at the center of the room, arm around Paige, looking every bit the successful businessman about to embark on his well-earned retirement. "I want to thank everyone for coming tonight," he began, his voice carrying across the room. 40 years at Phillips & Associates, and I couldn't have done it without the support of my beautiful wife Paige. I took another sip of flat champagne, trying to ignore the familiar ache in my chest. No mention of Mom, of course. No mention of how she'd raised me alone for years while he built his empire. As the crowd dispersed after the speech, I made my way to the restroom, needing a moment alone. But as I approached, I heard voices around the corner. "Just like her mother," Paige was saying to someone. "Fletcher tried his best, but you can't fix what's fundamentally broken. The girl's been nothing but a disappointment since day one." I froze, my hand gripping the wall for support. "That seems harsh," another voice responded. I recognized it as my Aunt Carol's. "Soleil seems to be doing well for herself." "Please." Paige scoffed. "She's 28, single, and still trying to make it as a writer. If it weren't for Fletcher's monthly checks, she'd be living in a cardboard box." My face burned. Those monthly checks were my inheritance from my grandmother, which my father managed. Something Paige knew very well. "I just wish Fletcher could see that all his efforts to help her were wasted," Paige continued. "Some people just aren't worth the investment." I backed away, bumping into a waiter who nearly dropped his tray of drinks. Mumbling an apology, I rushed toward the exit but crashed straight into my father. "Leaving already?" He frowned, straightening his tie. "The party's barely started." "I'm not feeling well," I managed to say. "You never are when it comes to family obligations." He sighed. "Your mother was the same way, always running when things got uncomfortable." The comparison to my mother intended as an insult felt like a lifeline in that moment. "Maybe she had the right idea," I said, meeting his eyes. His expression hardened. "Don't start, Soleil. Not tonight." "When then, Dad? When is it okay to talk about Mom? When is it okay to be anything other than grateful for your generosity and Paige's guidance?" "You're making a scene," he warned, glancing around. "No, I'm making an exit." I pulled the pearl earrings off and pressed them into his hand. "Congratulations on your retirement. I'm sure Paige will help you enjoy every minute of it." As I walked away, I heard Paige's voice behind me. "Fletcher, darling, is everything okay?" I didn't stay to hear his response. Instead, I pushed through the heavy doors into the cool night air, my hands shaking as I dug for my phone. I scrolled through my contacts until I found the number I'd been avoiding for years. "Mom," my voice cracked as she answered. "I think it's time we talked." 2 days after the retirement party disaster, I sat across from my mother at a quiet cafe, studying the face I hadn't seen in person for 15 years. Melina looked different from my memories, her dark hair now streaked with silver, laugh lines around her eyes deeper, but her smile was exactly as I remembered. "I can't believe you're actually here," she said, wrapping her hands around her coffee mug. "I've driven past your apartment so many times wanting to knock. Why didn't you?" The question came out sharper than I intended. "Because I promised your father I wouldn't interfere." She reached into her bag and pulled out a thick envelope. "But I think it's time you knew the truth." "What's that?" "Letters. Dozens of them. I wrote to you every week for the 1 stone year after I left." She pushed the envelope across the table. Letters that were supposedly delivered, but never answered. My hands trembled as I opened the envelope. Inside were letters, their pages yellowed with age, each one dated and addressed to me at my father's house. "I don't understand," I said. I never received these. I know that now. Melina's voice hardened. Paige made sure of it. What do you mean? Last year, I ran into Maria. You remember her? She was our housekeeper before Paige fired her. Melina leaned forward. She told me something interesting. She used to see Paige collecting mail before anyone else got to it. Specifically, she remembered seeing her throw away letters with my handwriting. The coffee in my stomach turned to acid. That's why you stopped trying to contact me? No, sweetheart, I never stopped. She pulled out her phone, scrolling through photos. Here's your graduation announcement, your first published article, that writing award you won last year. I followed everything you've done. How? Your cousin, Natalia. She's kept me updated, sent me pictures. She paused. I know I should have tried harder to reach you directly, but Paige had convinced your father that I was unstable. That contact with me would be harmful to you. Dad believed her, I whispered, though I already knew the answer. Of course he had. He'd believed everything Paige ever said about me, about Mom, about anyone who threatened her perfect family narrative. Paige is very good at what she does, Melina said carefully. She started planting seeds of doubt long before I left, suggesting I was depressed, unstable, potentially dangerous. When I finally confronted her about it, she gave me an ultimatum. What kind of ultimatum? Leave voluntarily, or she'd make sure I lost custody completely. She had evidence, fabricated of course, of my unstable behavior, witnesses willing to testify, your father's money behind her. Melina's eyes filled with tears. I thought if I left quietly I could fight it from outside, prove myself stable and responsible. I never imagined she'd manage to cut off all contact. My phone buzzed. A text from Alex. Where are you? Dad's freaking out about the earrings thing. I ignored it. Why are you telling me this now? Because you're ready to hear it, and because I have proof. She pulled out another envelope, this one containing what looked like legal documents. Your Uncle Sylvester, he's a lawyer now. He helped me gather evidence. Bank records showing payments to false witnesses. Emails between Paige and her friends coordinating their stories. Even a confession from one of them who felt guilty after all these years. I stared at the documents, my vision blurring. All this time, all these years of thinking you abandoned me. I know, baby. I'm so sorry. She reached across the table, taking my hand. I should have fought harder. No, I said, squeezing her hand. You did fight. Paige just made sure we never knew about it. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Paige. Your father is very disappointed in your behavior. Call him immediately. A cold clarity settled over me. Mom, I need your help with something, anything. These letters, the evidence, would you be willing to share them? All of it? She studied my face. What are you thinking? I'm thinking it's time everyone knew the truth about Paige. Not just what she did to you, but everything. The manipulation, the lies, all of it. I straightened in my chair, but I need to be smart about it. Strategic, you sound like your uncle. She smiled. He always says timing is everything in cases like this. Then let's talk to him. I stood up, gathering the letters and documents. I'm done letting Paige write our family's story. As we left the cafe, my phone buzzed one final time. A message from Natalia. Heard you finally met with Aunt Melina. Ready to raise some hell, cousin? For the first time in days I smiled. Hell wasn't just about to be raised. It was about to be orchestrated. Uncle Sylvester's office smelled like leather and coffee, and the wall of law books behind his desk made the perfect backdrop for our impromptu war council. Natalia perched on the edge of his desk while Mom and I sat in the visitors' chairs spreading out our evidence. This is quite the collection, Sylvester said, adjusting his reading glasses, bank statements, emails, witness statements. Paige wasn't as careful as she thought. People like her never are, Natalia chimed in. They get cocky. I picked up one of Mom's old letters. It's paper thin with age. I want to confront Dad with this. Today. Whoa, slow down. Sylvester held up his hand. Timing is crucial here. Your father's been under Paige's influence for decades. If we don't handle this right, he'll dismiss everything as a fabrication. The door opened, and Alex stepped in, making everyone jump. Sorry I'm late, he said, closing the door behind him. Had to make sure Mom didn't follow me. Alex? I stood up. What are you doing here? Natalia called me. He shrugged, looking uncomfortable in his suit and tie. Said it was time to pick a side. Natalia grinned. Told you he wasn't as blind as he pretends to be. Alex walked over to the desk, picking up one of the documents. I've suspected something was off for years. The way Paige, always controlled the narrative. The way she'd intercept mail and screen calls. He looked at me. Remember when your college acceptance letters mysteriously got lost in the mail? That was her. Found them in her desk drawer while looking for stamps. He sat down heavily. I should have told you then, but she's your mother, I finished. I get it. She's also a manipulative liar who destroyed my sister's relationship with her mother, he said firmly. That matters more. Sylvester cleared his throat. Alex's involvement changes things. We now have an inside perspective that could be crucial. More than that, Alex added. I have access to her computer. She's not as tech-savvy as she thinks. Found some interesting emails between her and her friend Sandra about their story alignment regarding Melina's departure. Mom's hands trembled as she reached for her coffee. Sandra was one of the witnesses who claimed I was unstable. Got those emails right here. Alex pulled out a USB drive along with some interesting financial records I found while helping Dad with tax preparation. Sylvester plugged in the drive, scanning the contents. This is excellent, but we still need to be strategic about the reveal. Dad's hosting a family dinner next weekend, Alex said, celebrating his first week of retirement. Everyone will be there. Natalia's eyes lit up. Perfect timing. Public enough to prevent a cover-up, private enough to maintain dignity. I don't care about dignity, I snapped. I care about justice. Justice without strategy is just revenge, Sylvester said quietly, and revenge has a way of backfiring. My phone buzzed. Another message from Paige. Family dinner next Saturday. Wear something appropriate. We need to discuss your recent behavior. She's planning something too, I said, showing them the message. She won't let the retirement party incident go unanswered. Then we'll be ready, Mom said, her voice stronger than I'd heard it all day. All of us. I should head back. Alex stood up. Dad's expecting me for lunch, but first he pulled out his phone, scrolling through photos until he found what he wanted. Remember that antique box Paige keeps in her closet? The one no one's allowed to touch? We gathered around his phone. The photo showed a collection of letters, cards, and what looked like birthday checks, all addressed to me. There's more. He swiped to another photo. College fund statements. Looks like Grandma left you way more than what Dad's been giving you monthly. The room went silent. Even Natalia looked shocked. That's theft, Sylvester said finally. Clear and documented theft. I gripped the edge of the desk, my knuckles white. All these years of her calling me a financial burden. While she was literally stealing your inheritance, Natalia finished. That's going to play really well at dinner. Alex headed for the door, pausing with his hand on the knob. Sis? For what it's worth, I'm sorry it took me so long to step up. You're here now, I said. That's what matters. After he left, Sylvester began organizing the documents into folders. 1 week to prepare. We'll need every minute. What do we do first? I asked. First, he smiled grimly. We make copies, lots of copies. Then we plan exactly how this story is going to unfold. I looked at the evidence spread across his desk. Years of lies and manipulation reduced to paper and pixels. Paige always said I was just like my mother. You are, Natalia grinned. You're both fighters, and this time you're fighting back together. The day before the family dinner, I met Dad for coffee at his request. He chose the same cafe where I'd reunited with Mom, though he didn't know that. He was already there when I arrived, looking oddly diminished without his usual business suit. You're late, he said, pushing a cappuccino toward me. Traffic. I sat down, noting the dark circles under his eyes. You wanted to talk? Paige is worried about you. He stirred his coffee unnecessarily. She says you've been avoiding her calls. I've been busy. Too busy to return any of my calls either? He leaned forward. What's going on with you lately, Soleil? First the scene at my retirement party, now this distance. Maybe I'm just tired of pretending, I said, watching his reaction carefully. Of acting like everything's fine when it's not. He frowned. What's that supposed to mean? Did you ever wonder why Mom really left? His face hardened. We're not discussing your mother. Why not? Because Paige said so? I pulled out one of Mom's old letters. Not the original, but a copy. Did you know about these? He stared at the letter, recognition flickering across his face. Where did you get that? From Mom. There are dozens more letters she wrote to me that I never received. Wanna guess why? Your mother abandoned us, he said, but his voice lacked its usual conviction. She was unstable. According to who? Paige? Her carefully coached friends? I pulled out another document, a bank statement showing payments to Sandra. Did you know your wife was paying people to lie about Mom's mental state? He grabbed the paper, scanning it with widening eyes. This could be fake. It's not, and there's more, so much more, Dad. I leaned forward, including proof that Paige has been stealing from my inheritance. The color drained from his face. What? Ask her about the antique box in her closet. Ask her about Grandma's college fund. I stood up. Or better yet, come to dinner tomorrow and see all the evidence for yourself. Sit down, he said sharply. You can't just drop something like this and walk away. Why not? Isn't that what everyone's been doing to me my whole life, dropping bombs and walking away? I grabbed my bag. For once, Dad, try looking at the evidence instead of just believing what Paige tells you. My phone buzzed. A text from Alex. Mom's going through your old room looking for something specific. Seems panicked. I showed Dad the message. Looks like someone's getting nervous. He stared at the phone, then at the documents, then back at me. I need time to process this. You've had 20 years to process the truth. You just chose not to see it. I headed for the door, then turned back. Oh, and Dad? Maybe ask Paige about Maria. our old housekeeper. She has some interesting stories to tell. I left him sitting there, staring into his coffee cup. Outside, Natalia was waiting in her car. How'd it go? She asked as I climbed in. Phase 1 complete. He's rattled. I checked my phone, 3 missed calls from Paige already. Alex says she's searching my old room, probably looking for anything she might have missed. Any evidence she didn't destroy. Natalia pulled into traffic. Uncle Sylvester's got Maria ready to go for tomorrow. She'll be there right after the main course. Perfect timing for dessert, I said grimly. How's Mom holding up? Nervous but ready. She and Sylvester are finalizing everything now. She glanced at me. You sure you want to go through with this? It's going to get ugly. It's been ugly for years. At least now it'll be honest. My phone buzzed again, this time a text from Dad. We need to talk more about this. Soon. He's cracking, Natalia observed. Paige must be losing her mind right now, watching her perfect world unravel. We pulled up to my apartment, but I didn't get out immediately. What if we're wrong? What if this backfires? Then we'll deal with it. Natalia squeezed my hand. But we're not wrong. Alex has the proof. Maria has the testimony. Mom has the letters. And you? She smiled. You have the truth on your side. Truth isn't always enough. No. But combined with bank fraud, witness tampering and documented theft? She raised an eyebrow. That's more than enough. My phone lit up with another text, this one from Alex. Found something interesting in Mom's shredder, bringing it tomorrow. Get ready. Looks like the universe is on our side, Natalia said. Get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be one hell of a family dinner. I stepped out of the car, clutching my bag of evidence. Hours until everything changed, hours until the truth finally came to dinner. The dining room felt smaller than I remembered, crowded with tension and unspoken words. Paige had outdone herself with the table setting, her best china, crystal glasses, and fresh flowers arranged just so. A perfect facade, just like everything else about her. Wine, darling. She held the bottle over my glass, her smile tight. No thanks. I want to keep a clear head tonight. Her hand trembled slightly as she moved to fill Dad's glass instead. He hadn't looked directly at anyone since we'd arrived, focusing intently on his water glass as if it held the secrets of the universe. Alex sat across from me picking at his salad. Next to him, Natalia chatted cheerfully about nothing important, playing her part perfectly. Uncle Sylvester had texted that he was running late, all according to plan. So Soleil. Paige set down the wine bottle with a little too much force. I heard you've been meeting with some interesting people lately. Have you been having me followed? I speared a cherry tomato. Don't be dramatic. I have friends who care about this family's well-being. Friends like Sandra? I watched her face carefully. How is she, by the way? Still doing well after those generous deposits you made to her account years ago? The clatter of Dad's fork against his plate echoed through the room. I don't know what you're talking about, Paige said smoothly, but her knuckles were white around her napkin. Really? That's interesting because the doorbell rang. I'll get it. Alex jumped up before Paige could move. Moments later, Maria walked in, followed by Uncle Sylvester. Our former housekeeper looked exactly as I remembered. Short, sturdy, with kind eyes that had seen too much. What is she doing here? Paige stood up so quickly her chair scraped against the floor. Maria, Dad said softly, finally looking up. It's been a long time. Too long, Mr. Phillips. Maria clutched her handbag. I have something to say. This is a private family dinner, Paige snapped. You need to leave. Actually, Sylvester stepped forward. Maria is here as a witness. She has some very interesting things to share about her time working in this house. Witness? Paige laughed, but it sounded hollow. This is ridiculous. Fletcher, do something. Dad didn't move. Let her speak. Maria took a deep breath. I saw you, Mrs. Phillips. Every morning for years going through the mail before anyone else woke up. Taking letters addressed to Soleil. Burning them in the garden. That's absurd. Paige sputtered. Fletcher, you can't believe. I kept one. Maria continued opening her bag. Just one because the envelope was so pretty with pressed flowers drawn on it. I felt guilty for years about not giving it to Soleil, but I was afraid of losing my job. She pulled out a faded envelope. It's a birthday card from her mother. The room went silent. Dad reached for the envelope with shaking hands. While we're sharing, Alex stood up pulling papers from his jacket. I found these in the shredder last night. Didn't have time to piece them all together, but the bank letterhead is pretty clear. Something about a trust fund. You went through my private papers? Paige's voice rose an octave. Like you went through my room yesterday? I countered. Looking for evidence you might have missed? I don't have to listen to this. Paige pushed back from the table. Fletcher, we're leaving. Sit down, Paige. Dad's voice was quiet but firm. I want to hear the rest. The rest? She laughed hysterically. There is no rest. This is obviously a coordinated attack on me, on our family. Our family. I stood up slowly. You mean the family you created by destroying mine? By paying people to lie about my mother? By stealing my inheritance? Everything I did was for this family. No. a new voice said from the doorway. Everything you did was for yourself. Mom stood there looking elegant and composed with more documents in her hands. Paige's face went from red to white. You can't be here. The restraining order? Expired 15 years ago, Sylvester cut in, and was based on false testimony anyway, as Sandra recently admitted in a sworn statement. Sandra would never. She did, I interrupted. Turns out guilt catches up with people eventually, just like karma. Fletcher. Paige turned to my father, her voice desperate. You can't believe these lies. After everything we've built. Built on what, Paige? He finally met her eyes. On manipulation, theft, destroying evidence? He held up the birthday card from Mom. On keeping a child from her mother? The perfect facade finally cracked. Paige's face contorted with rage as she grabbed her wine glass and hurled it against the wall, red liquid streaming down the expensive wallpaper like blood. You want the truth? She screamed. Fine, let's tell the truth, all of it. Alex caught my eye and nodded slightly. Everything was falling into place, exactly as planned. The real show was about to begin. The truth? Paige paced the dining room like a caged animal. The truth is, I saved this family. Your precious Melina was weak, pathetic, always crying about her art and her dreams, while Fletcher worked himself to death. That's not true. Mom stepped fully into the room. I supported Fletcher's career. I raised our daughter while he built his business. You were holding him back. Paige whirled around. I saw his potential. I knew what he could become with the right guidance. You mean with the right manipulation? I said. Tell them about Sandra Paige. Tell them how you orchestrated the whole thing. She laughed high and brittle. Sandra was easy. They were all easy. A few $1,000 here, a promised promotion there. People will say anything if you make it worth their while. Dad's face had gone ashen. You paid people to lie about Melina's mental state? I created a narrative that would hold up in court, Paige snapped. One that would let you focus on your career without her emotional baggage dragging you down. And the letters? I pressed. The inheritance? You want to talk about money? She stormed over to the sideboard, yanking open a drawer. Fine. Here are your precious trust fund statements. Yes, I redirected some of it. Someone had to manage your grandmother's ridiculous generosity. Alex picked up one of the statements. Mom, this is fraud. It's family financial management. She turned to Dad. Everything I did, every single thing was to protect what we built. This house, your career, our reputation, I crafted it all. By destroying evidence? Sylvester stepped forward. By intercepting mail? That's a federal offense, Paige. Oh please, a few birthday cards, some tearful letters. I was protecting Soleil from her mother's instability. No. Mom's voice cut through the room like steel. You were protecting yourself. Maria, show them. Maria pulled out a small notebook. I kept a diary of everything I saw. Dates, times, what Mrs. Phillips did with the mail, who came to the house when Mr. Phillips was away. You spied on me. Paige's voice shook. You were nothing but a servant. I was a witness, Maria said quietly, and I saw how you planned it all, step by step. The fake witnesses, the concerned phone calls to Mr. Phillips about his wife's behavior, the way you isolated Miss Melina from her friends. It wasn't just Mom, was it? I stepped closer to Paige. Tell them about my college acceptance letters, about the job offers you intercepted. You weren't ready. She grabbed the edge of the sideboard. You're still not ready. Just like your mother, always wanting more than you deserve. Deserve? Dad stood up slowly. What my daughter deserves is her inheritance. What she deserved was a relationship with her mother. What she deserved was the truth. The truth? Paige laughed again, but tears were streaming down her face now. The truth is, I made you successful. I made this family what it is without me. Without you, Alex interrupted. We might have been an actual family instead of this performance. You ungrateful. She lunged for the documents in his hands, but Sylvester stepped between them. I wouldn't, he said calmly. These are copies anyway. The originals are safe with my office along with Sandra's sworn statement, Maria's diary entries, and evidence of your financial fraud. You can't prove anything. Actually, Alex pulled out his phone. We can. I recorded everything you just said about paying witnesses, redirecting funds, destroying mail. That's quite a confession, Mom. The fight seemed to drain out of her all at once. She sank into a chair, mascara running down her cheeks. Fletcher, please. Everything I did was for us. Dad walked over to Mom, taking her hand. No, Paige. Everything you did was for yourself. And now? Now you're going to face the consequences. What are you going to do? She looked around wildly. Turn me in? Destroy our family's reputation? The reputation you built on lies? I picked up one of Mom's old letters. I think the truth will be refreshing. You'll regret this, she hissed. All of you. The only regret, Dad said quietly, is that I didn't see through you sooner. He turned to Sylvester. What do we do now? Now. My uncle smiled grimly. We take all of this to the authorities. Mail fraud, witness tampering, financial theft. The police will be very interested. Paige stood up shakily. I want my lawyer. Good idea. Sylvester nodded. You're going to need one. As if on cue, the doorbell rang again. This time when Alex opened it, 2 police officers stepped into the foyer. Perfect timing, Natalia murmured, pulling out her phone to record what happened next. I watched as Paige's carefully constructed world crumbled around her piece by perfect piece. The truth, as they say, will set you free. But first, it might just destroy everything you thought you knew. The police station's fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across everyone's faces as we gave our statements. It was nearly midnight, and the events of the evening felt surreal, like a movie playing out in slow motion. Just a few more questions, Miss Phillips, Detective Rivera said, shuffling through her notes. You said the financial manipulation began how long ago? At least 20 years, I replied, watching through the window as Paige sat in another room, her lawyer whispering urgently in her ear. But we only discovered the full extent recently. And the witness tampering? That started even earlier. Mom's voice was steady beside me. Sandra's statement confirms it all. The detective nodded, making more notes. The postal inspector will want to speak with you both tomorrow about the mail interference. That's a serious federal offense. Dad paced behind us, looking older than I'd ever seen him. I should have known. All those years I should have seen what was happening. She was very good at what she did, Alex said from his corner. He hadn't stopped watching Paige through the window. She had everyone fooled. Detective Rivera closed her notebook. Based on the evidence you've provided and Mrs. Black's partial confession at the house, we'll be holding her overnight. The fraud division will take over in the morning. What happens then? I asked. Given the extent of the crimes and the documentation you have, she's looking at serious charges. Mail fraud alone carries up to 20 years. A commotion erupted in the other room. Paige had stood up, shoving away her lawyer's restraining hand. I want to talk to them. Her voice carried through the glass. Fletcher, Soleil, Mrs. Black, I strongly advise against, her lawyer started. I don't care. She banged on the window. Fletcher, you can't do this to me. Everything I did was for us. Dad turned away, his shoulders shaking. Mom reached for his hand, and after a moment's hesitation, he took it. You should all go home, Detective Rivera said kindly. We have your contact information. The fraud division will be in touch tomorrow. As we gathered our things, Paige's voice grew more hysterical. Alex, tell them how I protected this family. Alex paused at the door. Goodbye, Mom. His voice cracked on the last word. Outside, the night air felt clean and fresh after the stale police station atmosphere. Natalia was waiting in the parking lot with coffee and sandwiches. Thought you might need these, she said, passing them around. How did it go? About as well as could be expected, Sylvester answered, checking his phone. The fraud division's already reviewing the financial documents. They're particularly interested in the trust fund manipulation. What happens to the house? Alex asked suddenly. All the accounts? They'll be frozen pending investigation, Sylvester explained. But anything that was illegally diverted should eventually be restored to its rightful owners. I turned to Dad. Where will you stay? He's coming home with me, Mom said firmly. We have a lot to talk about. Dad looked up surprised. Melina, not tonight. She shook her head. Tonight we all need rest, but soon. I have a spare room, Alex offered. If you'd prefer? Dad shook his head. No. Melina's right. It's time for some honest conversations. A police car pulled out of the station's garage, Paige being transferred to the county jail. We all watched it disappear into the night. It doesn't feel real, I said. Oh, it's real. Natalia pulled out her phone, already trending on local social media. Prominent businessman's wife arrested for decades of fraud and manipulation. Great, Alex groaned. Just what we need. Actually, Sylvester interjected. Public exposure might help prevent her from trying to spin this her way. The truth is already out there. Mom squeezed my hand. Are you okay? I don't know, I admitted. It feels like waking up from a very long nightmare. For all of us, Dad said quietly. He looked at Mom, then at me. I know it's not enough, but I'm sorry, so incredibly sorry. It's a start, I said. Alex checked his watch. I should go. Need to pack up some things from the house before they seal it for investigation. I'll help, Natalia offered. One by one, everyone departed until only Mom, Dad, and I remained in the parking lot. The three of us stood there, an awkward triangle of hurt and hope and possibility. Come on, Mom finally said. I'll make tea. We can start small. As we walked to our cars, I heard the faint wail of another siren in the distance. Somewhere in a county jail cell, Paige was facing her one stone night without control, without power, without her carefully constructed lies. And here we were, taking our first steps toward rebuilding what she had destroyed. It wouldn't be easy. Nothing worth having ever is. But at least now we had the truth. All of it. And that was somewhere to start. The autumn breeze rustled through Mom's garden as I helped her plant tulip bulbs. Dad sat on the porch reading through old letters. He'd made it his mission to read every single one Mom had written, as if making up for lost time. These need to be deeper, Mom demonstrated, digging the hole a few inches further. They'll freeze otherwise. My phone buzzed a message from Alex. Sentencing today. You coming? I can't, I typed back. Some things are more important. Mom caught me looking at the phone. Alex? Yeah. Paige's sentencing is today. Dad looked up from his letters. Are you sure you don't want to go? I'm exactly where I need to be. I pressed another bulb into the earth. Besides, Sylvester will handle everything. The screen door creaked as Natalia emerged with a tray of lemonade. Anyone thirsty? Also, your publisher called Soleil. They're excited about the manuscript. I brushed dirt from my hands. They should be. Truth really is stranger than fiction. And more profitable. Natalia grinned. They're already talking about film rights. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, I said. But couldn't help smiling. The advance had already helped me move into a new apartment, one without Paige's financial strings attached. Dad set down his letters. I read the draft, last night. And it's honest, painfully so. He joined us in the garden. I deserved every word. It's not about deserving, I said, accepting a glass of lemonade. It's about truth. All of it. The ugly parts, the healing parts. My phone buzzed again, this time from Sylvester. 15 years, no possibility of parole for 10. Financial restitution ordered in full. I showed them the message. 15 years, Dad whispered. Justice, Mom said simply, patting the earth around another bulb. You know what I realized? I sat back on my heels looking at the freshly planted garden. Paige was right about one thing. I am like my mother. Oh? Mom raised an eyebrow. Yeah. We're both fighters. We both believe in second chances. I glanced at Dad. And we both know how to plant something new in scorched earth. Dad's eyes welled up. I don't deserve. Stop, Mom interrupted. No more talk of deserving. We're here now doing the work. That's what matters. Natalia's phone chimed. Alex says Paige asked to speak to him after the sentencing. Did he? No, says he's done letting her write his story. She smiled. He's heading over here, by the way, bringing pizza. I stood up, brushing dirt from my knees. You know what this garden needs? Those wind chimes you used to have, Mom. The ones that play different notes in the breeze. I haven't thought about those in years, she said softly. I have them, Dad said quietly. In my office. I kept them after you left. Couldn't bring myself to throw them away even when Paige insisted. Well? Mom stood up, brushing off her hands. What are you waiting for? Go get them. As Dad hurried inside, I looked around at what we'd built from the ashes of Paige's destruction. A garden slowly coming to life. A family gradually healing. A truth finally told. The tulips won't bloom until spring, Mom said, reading my thoughts. But that's okay. Some things are worth waiting for. Dad returned with the wind chimes. Delicate tubes of metal and glass that caught the sunlight. Together, we hung them from the porch overhang, their gentle music filling the air. Alex's car pulled into the driveway. Pizza boxes balanced in one hand, a bottle of wine in the other. Hope everyone likes pepperoni. Also, you'll never believe what Sandra told the judge at the sentencing. As we gathered on the porch, sharing pizza and stories, I realized something profound. Paige had spent decades crafting a perfect facade, but here we were, building something real from the rubble, something messy and honest and true. The wind chimes tinkled in the breeze, their notes mixing with laughter and conversation. Mom and Dad sat close enough for their shoulders to touch, 2 decades of manipulation slowly dissolving between them. Alex told jokes that actually reached his eyes now. Natalia documented everything on her phone for posterity, she claimed. And me? I watched it all, memorizing every detail for my next chapter, not just in the book, but in life. Because that's the thing about truth. Once it breaks free, it creates its own kind of beauty. Not the polished, perfect kind that Paige had manufactured, but something wild and real and unstoppable, like tulips pushing through winter earth promising spring.